Hello everyone, and you are very welcome to this year's Climate and Nature Summit. And I would like to start by thanking you and thanking your teachers in particular for signing up for the summit. So our first lesson is COP27, Let's Have a Conversation. So in this lesson, we are going to learn a little bit about the COP and a little bit about climate conversations. So let's get started. So we will start off by learning a little bit about the COP. So I wonder, does anybody know what COP stands for? So if you do, put up your hand, and teacher can pause the video at any point. Anytime I ask a question, put up your hand if you want to answer before I tell you. So COP stands for the Conference of the Parties. So that's where the COP comes from. So a conference is when a group of people get together to discuss something. So lots of professions would have conferences. We would have an education conference where lots of teachers and other people who are interested in education come together to discuss education, or there might be a medical conference where doctors would come together. So that's what a conference is. So coming together to talk about something. So who is coming together? The parties. Well, the parties are different government organisations from all around the world. So they are coming together. And this year it's COP27. So the 27 stands for the fact that it is the 27th conference. This is the 27th time that the parties or the world leaders are coming together to have a conversation. Okay? So this is kind of a trick question, but if this is the 27th COP, when do you think the COP started? So teacher might like to pause here if people want to figure this out, but just remember some major world events that happened recently that might affect the answer here. So you can have a little chat about that and come back to me when you're ready. So the first COP happened all the way back in 1995. So that was called COP1, and that happened in Germany. And so all the way through then to last year was COP26. And I wonder, can anybody remember where the COP was held last year? So last year, COP26 was in Glasgow. So you might remember that, it was on the news a lot. So between these two, there was COP2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And different major decisions were made at different conferences. So one that may be of interest to you is COP24, and COP24 happened in Poland in 2018. And the reason for me that this was a really interesting COP is because a young climate activist got to take the stage and she made a really important speech. And I wonder if you know who I am talking about. I am indeed talking about Greta Thunberg. So this was the first time she spoke at the COP, and for me this was really important because young people, children and young people, have always been very good to speak out about injustice and the environment. But when Greta got this opportunity, I think it really helped the youth movement on environmentalism and climate change. So every year, as you can see, it's been held in a different place. So every year there's a different president of the COP who gets, that country gets to host the COP. So I wonder, do you know where the COP is going to be held this year, where COP27 is? So again, teacher can pause if you want to have a discussion on this. So this year, the COP is being held in Egypt. So I wonder what we know about Egypt. So let's start with the flag. Does anybody know what the flag of Egypt looks like? So again, if you'd like to pause to have a chat. So the flag of Egypt looks like this. We have a red, white and black stripe with this beautiful emblem of an eagle at the centre. And what about the location of Egypt? Where is Egypt in the world? What continent is Egypt in? So Egypt is here in North Africa. So I have Egypt here in red, and I put a little green dot on Ireland as well so that you could get the idea of where Egypt is located in relation to us up here in Ireland. Now, there will be plenty of people travelling out to Egypt to attend the COP from Ireland. So would anybody like to estimate how far away Egypt is from Ireland? So I've put up a couple of options here. How far away will the distance be? So Egypt is in fact in or around 4,300 kilometres away. So what do we know now? So we know what the COP stands for. So we know the C, the conference, people are coming together to have a conversation. The P, the parties, that's the people who are coming, so the government organisations. And we know where they are going. So what are they going to talk about? They are all coming together to talk about the very important topic of climate change and what we can do to stop climate change. So that is climate action. So I would like to show you a very short and simple animation, just very quickly to remind us exactly what climate change is.
Why is the Earth heating up? Our Earth is surrounded by a very important layer of gases called the atmosphere. The atmosphere acts like a blanket and it keeps planet Earth at the perfect temperature. However, we are adding gases to this blanket, which is making the Earth warmer than it should be. But where are these extra gases coming from? They come from the burning of fossil fuels. These are fuels such as coal, oil, and gas. When we burn fossil fuels, we release a gas called carbon dioxide or CO2 into the atmosphere. This CO2 joins the blanket, making the Earth warmer. Because Earth is warmer than it should be, our climate is changing. Around the world, we are seeing more floods, droughts, storms, and heat waves. We call this climate change.
So we know that burning fossil fuels is heating up our planet. So let's take a quick look at this NASA graphic that shows us just how much our planet is heating up. So what we can see from this graphic is that most of our global heating has occurred in the last 20 to 30 years, which makes us think, well, what has changed? What are we doing more of in this time, which is causing this? So this question, I want you to take a look at and have a little think. What industry has contributed the most to climate change? Is it transport? Is it the fossil fuel industry? Or is it agriculture? Now, I'm pretty sure you know the answer, but if you need to pause before going on, that is absolutely fine. So the answer is indeed the fossil fuel industry. It is the fossil fuel industry, the extracting of oil and so on from the earth, that is our biggest problem at the moment. It is slowing down climate action, and it is continuing to exacerbate the problem. So if there's one takeaway that we can get from this, it is this, that if we can end the fossil fuel industry, then almost 3/4 of our problem is gone, because the fossil fuel industry is actually 73.2% of the global warming problem. Now, we won't look at ending the fossil fuel industry today, but if we are ever talking about it, we must remember that we have to be fair. For example, we must be fair to the workers in these industries. And you may have listened to Mary Robinson before this lesson speaking about a just transition. So we now know some of the science behind climate change, and we can see what we have to do to stop it. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. But before we go any further with this, I want us to take a moment to consider just how important our climate action is. This is a very famous photo. and it's nicknamed the Blue Marble, and it was taken from Apollo 17 all the way back in 1972. Now, this may not seem like much now because we've much better images of the Earth, but this was the first time that a full shot was taken of Earth. And this was the first time that we could see ourselves, our Earth, in all its beauty. And even though this may be a common image now, we must always remember just how important our planet is. Because planet Earth is our shared home, and we all have a responsibility to protect it. This is planet Earth. This is home. Home to the smallest flowers and the mightiest trees. Home to the birds and the animals. From the deepest oceans to the tallest mountains and all the lakes and valleys in between. This is our common home. So now we know what the problem is, and we know why it is so important that we do something about it. So let's start talking about climate action. So I want you to chat with your partner in school or as groups what you could do in your daily lives as a climate action. So what you could do at school and at home. So if you could speak about that for a minute or two and then come back to me. So I am sure that you came up with wonderful ideas of different climate actions that you can take. And when I was thinking about it, here's a couple of things that I came up with. So this is called active travel. So active travel is when we move without the use of fossil fuels, when we walk or scoot or skate or cycle to school. I thought about taking public transport, so where possible not to take my car, but to take a train or a bus if that's possible. I thought about in home and at school, turning off our lights, things that we are all getting quite good at. I thought about planting trees, and this is a very important climate action because trees breathe in carbon dioxide, so they take the carbon dioxide out of the air that's already there. So that's a really good one. And I thought about maybe not flying when I don't need to, but that is quite difficult at the moment because it's very difficult to travel very far. We need to improve train systems and so on. But these are the ones that I thought of, and I'm sure you came up with much better ones. But I am wondering, did anybody come up with something else? Because I have not mentioned the most important climate action that we can take every day. So if you would like to pause again, just to maybe think, what do you think is the most important climate action? And then come back to me. So the most important climate action that we can take is to talk about it, to talk about climate change. So I wonder, did anybody come up with that? So when we talk about something more, it becomes more a part of our lives. And also each one of us, our voice is very important, and we can teach others about climate change and we can learn from others. And people will often listen to people that they know much more than they will listen to somebody like a scientist on the news or a news reporter. So people are much more likely to listen to their friends and family about these types of topics. So when we are talking to each other, we are having a conversation if we are doing one other thing. So to have a conversation, we need to talk and we need to listen. Now, this is not just me saying that talking is important. This lady here is Professor Katharine Hayhoe. And Katharine is from Canada, and she is a world-renowned climate scientist. And a climate scientist is somebody who studies changes in the Earth's climate over time to see how it might affect our planet in the future. And Katharine Hayhoe says that the most important climate action that we can take is to talk about it. If we are going to spend time talking about climate change and having good climate conversations, then we should probably spend some time thinking about what makes a good conversation. So before we do that, I want you to watch this very short animation with Estelle, Troy, and Neil, and then we'll have a chat about it.
Hey guys, how are you today? I'm good. I feel great. I just cycled to school. We should all start cycling to school together. Yeah, that's a great idea. But, yeah, because we've been learning that using our car is bad for the environment. But I don't think I can go. We really should all try to cycle to school together. I don't know, guys. I don't think my mum will let me cycle to school. But you should. We all need to start doing what's good for the environment. But the road I live on is just too dangerous. Well, I'm definitely going to start cycling tomorrow. Yeah, me too.
So what do you think? Was that a good conversation? Well, maybe it wasn't the best conversation. So at one point, I think Neil interrupted Troy, and really, no, they weren't really listening to him. He was saying that he lives on a dangerous road, and the other two children weren't really listening to that, the fact that cycling just wasn't for him at the moment. So I want you now to come up with a couple of words to describe what makes a good conversation. So we already have two things that we know we need. We need to talk, and we also need to listen. But in order for it to be a good conversation, what other things must we think about? So you might want to do that as a class or chat with your partner for a minute and then come back to me. So when I was thinking about this, some of the things that I thought about that would help us to have good conversations were, I thought it's really important that we take turns to talk and listen. I also think that it is really important to be kind in our conversations. We won't always agree with what the other person is saying, but in order for us to try and solve a massive issue like climate change, we have to remember to be kind because we're not always going to agree. Always showing respect for the other person, again, respecting people's opinions, and even if I don't agree with them, I respectfully tell them why and I respectfully explain my opinion. And I think it's also really important to remember that it's okay to disagree with somebody. That's all right. So I'm sure that you came up with wonderful ideas and different words to describe the things that we need to think about in order to have good conversations. So now it is your turn to have some climate conversations. So there is a big conversation happening this week. Can you remember the name of the big conference? That's right, it's COP27. And I wonder, can you remember where it is being held? Of course, it is Egypt. So we want to think about our own climate conversations now, because now we know how important it is to talk. So we need to know think about what are we going to talk about and who are we going to talk with. So this week, taking part in the Climate and Nature Summit, you are going to be learning lots about climate and nature, and these are the things that you can talk about. You can talk about your learning. And who can you talk to? Well, your family is always a great place to start. It is wonderful to go home and to tell your family about the things that you were learning about in school. And school itself is another wonderful place for us to have climate conversations. So that is it from me now. Hopefully you're going to have some more climate conversations with your friends and your teacher. But I just want to finish up by saying thank you very much for listening to this first lesson, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit. Slán an ish.